Blog Talk Radio.
Jonathan Alexander, and I'm here to host our show, Life, Laughter, Happiness. Today, I have my co-host, Barbara. Are you there, Barbara?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. And I have my other co-host, Kelly. Are you there, Kelly?
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Now, Kelly, our guest today is someone that you brought. So, being that's the case, why don't you introduce the guest?
I would be happy to. I have brought Chris Newland, and he is an environmentalist, and I am so happy, has been digging and uncovering documents and testing and bringing to light a very important thing that is very near and dear to my heart. He has been digging around and discovering that there are so many things that have been hidden and covered up in my hometown and my state that we both share of Michigan, and Kalamazoo and Portage and Oshtemo and all of the different areas surrounding it in West Michigan, that there are contaminants that are under the soil and moving around that nobody's talking about, that it's just now being brought to light in the regular mainstream media, and even that is being hushed in a lot of ways. But we have broken the story before on our show a few times since I've been on, and it's just now starting to gain traction at the White House. It's gotten some attention, and if you can tell us about how the governor's starting to hear about it and take notice, and what's all been happening. I mean, it's starting to now get noticed, but there's still times when, like, the news media around us will not pick it up because it's been silenced by these corporations. Can you tell us about that, Chris?
Yeah, well, a lot of it has to do with when you find contaminants in the soil. And this was explained to me by my brother, whose farm's affected by this. You drive the property value down to zero. Now imagine if you have thousands of acres in a township, you've just rendered that property value zero. That means that it's not taxable anymore, and you kill off townships because they can't, they come out and assess your property, and essentially it's worthless because nobody's going to want to buy contaminated farmland, contaminated houses. So there's a pushback from the real estate community and the county because they need that tax money. And a lot of places out here, townships, they've gotten a little excessive in building new libraries, new schools, and it's all funded by taxes. And that dream of having everything new is shattered now. So you run into, massive resistance by either your county or your township or your real estate people. There's a lot of pushback into finding and reporting contaminants. And it gets down in the aquifer, and then you buy a piece of property, build a house. There's no city water out here. You drill a well. You can't taste that contaminant, but it's there. And then you wonder why your family's sick. And That's the sad part about this stuff. Is we don't communicate to the residents what happened 40 years ago out here or where it came from. And it's like putting a puzzle together. You have some of the pieces, but you don't have all of them because the government won't give you the key pieces that you need. And that's what we find. That's what we find.
What kind of things are happening to the people that they aren't realizing are connected to this contamination?
Well, what happens is you get a whole community with thyroid disease, and you don't realize that it's all related until you have a big meeting and somebody brings it up. Hey, what's going on? Why do we have so much MS in our community? Why do we have thyroid disease and cancer? And it takes outfits like the CDC to come in and do testing and to push. There are some good government agencies out there that do care about the welfare of the people, and the CDC is one of them. And that's what it takes. And then this little Pandora's box starts to open, and more questions come out of it. And the local agencies around here are Environmental Quality Division. They do not like private citizens asking questions and requesting documents. I can tell you that for a fact. They push back. They push back with control quite a bit.
Oh, what kind of resistance are you running into?
Well, a lot of it is silence. They will silence you. In the early days of this investigation, I could call up any television studio and give them the story, and they'd get back with me, and they would follow it. They'd pretty much shut it down. They don't want to cover it. They don't want to. They don't want to do anything with it anymore, and that's kind of sad.
Oh,
you know, they won't even return your calls. You know, I did that one interview, and they advertised it on TV, Channel 17, about a year ago. They advertised it to the public for 2 weeks, and then they pulled the story without explanation. And I never did get an answer why that happened. There are some good. MLive is pretty good, and MLive has an interest in Michigan's newspaper network of covering the story. And there are some good reporters out there. But the TV stations, like I told you, Kelly, you didn't even know there was a cyanide fire at Pfizer 2 years ago because it never got reported by the TV station. And here you had a fire in a cyanide building 2 miles from probably where you live.
Yeah, exactly. That's rather scary. I mean, how many other things happen that we don't know about that are important and we could be affected by?
You know, when I was at Pfizer, we had 3 explosions. 3 explosions in the chemical factory, and not one of them ever made it to the paper, or 3 major incidents or 4 major incidents. It never made it to the paper. Nobody ever knew about it. That's the type of control that they have on news stories.
Wow.
For whatever reason, they won't cover it. I don't know why, and I don't know who calls the shots, but they pretty much have a lot of control over what's being told, and I don't know who does it. I don't know if it's the rich that do it, the super rich in the area that have business interests in some of this stuff. But I do know it gets controlled by somebody.
Wow. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sad part about it being an investigator. Yeah, it opens your eyes, but when you have to confront them, and you have the truth, and you have the truth, you fight them to a standstill, and it's like they just won't comment on it. They'll they go silent. You have them cornered, and then they start to get nasty at you. And then they just try to write you out of the story and ignore you altogether. But fortunately, they can't put the fire out forever. There's always there's always going to be another battle. They may win a battle or two, but in the end, we'll win the war on communicating with the public what's going on out here.
Wow. So you were telling us before the show about aquifers and how this stuff travels. So if it's in one area, it can start to travel to another without people knowing. How does that work? And where's it at right now, these new chemicals that you've discovered?
Chemicals
with
get
the
down into the aquifer, which is the water table, and over time they start to move. In the case in Kalamazoo, the dump is 6 miles away, and it's already traveled 6 miles in 20 years. Well, it's cancer-causing chemicals down there that are moving, and they're still moving because you can't get rid of it. They won't break down. They're going to be there for the next 50 to 100 to 200 years, and it's going to go somewhere. It's going to exit somewhere, and when you ask that, you run into a lot of resistance. Now, I have the governor's office working on this, so maybe I will get some answers out of the governor's office. The governor's aware that this is moving, and it's threatening a fish hatchery.
Oh, boy.
And those that know Michigan, fish is pretty vital to the state of Michigan. Our trout and salmon are pretty important to the Great Lakes.
Right. Plus, you want to make sure that you're eating something and feeding your family something that's safe.
Well, that's what the Great Lakes are known for. It's fish, and this fish hatchery. I don't know what you call baby fish, but it's a supplier of trout and salmon eggs, and so they. If you kill this off, the state, I don't know what they're going to do about coming up with a new fish hatchery because I don't think they have many in this state.
Oh, is this what people stock lakes with and ponds and things like that?
What's that? I didn't get.
Oh, is this what people are stocking lakes and ponds with?
No, nobody's talking about it. See it on the map where it's going to go.
Oh, okay. Okay. But are people like taking these fish and then they're building up the population of a lake or a pond?
Yeah, they take them all over the state of Michigan and they put them in trout streams. So that this facility is probably a half mile from the contaminants, and so they go all over the state and they take these trout eggs and they plant them in streams up in the Upper Peninsula or wherever, and this is just like our key facility for that. But there's a river that's near there that goes into Paw Paw, Michigan. Well, eventually this stuff's going to start exiting into a waterway, and that eventually works its way into Lake Michigan.
Oh,
you know,
boy.
And so now you're putting cancer-causing chemicals into Lake Michigan.
Oh, and we have all these orchards and blueberries and pumpkins.
Yeah, farms. We have all these farms. And who's to say that the fruit belt isn't going to be affected by this because they uptake these contaminants. So now you would be eating these contaminants.
And we have all these wineries, and, we have this thriving, craft beer economy. And, what are we doing?
The state doesn't want to admit that these pollutions can be uptaken in the roots of plants, and you ingest it. The state will not admit to that, even though the state officials have gone to conferences and told them that this can happen. The state will not admit that this can exist, and this is I consider it criminal. It's the truth. You can uptake in plants contaminants, and then you can ingest this, and it's been proven.
Oh boy, this sounds like unless there's some way to stop this, that we could be in some really big trouble.
Well, you wouldn't. You blame your cancer on something else, But the root cause is you got sick because you ate contaminated food that was contaminated by chemicals that were dumped 40 years ago.
Wow.
You know?
Do you think that this is exclusive to this area in Michigan, or do you think that if there was a way to do like an exhaustive search that this is something that's widespread that happens everywhere?
It happens everywhere because there were no environmental laws prior to 1977, or they were very lax. The EPA didn't come into existence until 1970, but these chemicals were invented in 1950, and these dumps went on into the 80s or 90s before they closed them down. So the damage was done years ago.
Wow.
You wouldn't do that now, but years ago, their legacy still lives on. You know, and it gets in the water supply.
Is there a way to contain this before it goes into Lake Michigan or something like that? It becomes an even bigger problem?
Well, you got to build monitoring wells. You got to have monitoring wells. And what you definitely don't want to do is put a composting facility on top of a dump and start carving into the ground and pumping well water on your compost and then spread it all over Michigan. You definitely don't want to do that, but that happened.
Wow.
You know, like like a landscaping company buys this stuff and you put it in your garden.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And that happens. That's happening right now because there's no law against composting. There's a major composting facility that is built on a paper mill dump.
Oh.
I tried to get them to stop it. They won't because there's no laws against it.
Wow.
Because why? Because we don't test compost for chemicals.
That's crazy.
Well, not only that, but we truck it out of state and we take it into Ohio and Indiana and we contaminate those states too.
Oh, boy.
And then we find out this was sponsored by the state of Michigan as a way to turn waste into gold. So the solution is to carve up 40 acres of land and scatter it all over Michigan and in the Indiana and Ohio. That's not right.
No. Wow.
And then when you bring it to their attention, they say, "Well, you must have trespassed to see this or whatnot." They make it very hard to. They put the pressure on you. I'm really surprised I haven't ran into this company arguing with me over this.
Wow.
But they're part of a lawsuit, so they really can't. Because if they did bring it, I'd have to use them as evidence. So it's kind of a catch-22. But I know they're not happy with me. I was told that, for bringing that up.
Wow.
But you can't deny 16 to 18 years of Google Earth maps that show it being carted out of there and the soil removed.
Right.
That's public record.
Yeah. So
those were heated meetings. Those were some heated meetings in the Allegan County's health department office over this subject. Very heated about 18 years of Google Earth maps are showing that you're carting this stuff and mixing it with compost and trucking it out of there.
Wow. Yeah, it kind of makes me want to move to isolated area and set up homesteading.
Well, that's kind of what I do out here. I like to grow my own stuff out here, but I'm real cautious about, the materials I use.
Where do you live exactly, Chris? But you said you're sick too.
I live in an adjoining county, and my well's 150 feet deep. And So I live about 12 miles from where Kelly lives, 12 to 14 miles from where Kelly lives, and 12 miles where I grew up. I try to live out of the zone of where this happened.
Doesn't seem like it's far enough. Don't you guys wonder if you are sick because of this?
I kind of live up in the high hills of the area, so stuff isn't going to flow down into my property up here.
Good. What about
so
Kelly?
It gives me a little bit of a barrier of what happens.
Because of this? Is Kelly sick because of this?
I wonder about that.
And
not
then
fun to wonder about it.
And what makes you sad is knowing people that you went to school with that lived in contaminated zones out here that died of horrible cancers in their 50s. That makes you sad. Because the property was contaminated.
Yeah. I had kids I went to school with that when I was in elementary, one of them had cancer in elementary school. Another one, right out of high school, died of cancer. Another one had cancer in her mid-20s and died. And, I mean, there's a lot of, thyroid, issues around here. A lot of polycystic ovarian syndrome. There's a lot of people I know with lupus and MS and different things like that, and different immune things, diabetes. There's a lot of that around here, and other autoimmune. So I really wonder.
Yeah, I was stricken with a form of autoimmune disease. I really don't blame it on that, but yeah, I can sympathize with autoimmune disease because now I have a form of it. But I don't believe it's from that. But I grew up in the hot zone, and I grew up near there.
Wow.
So.
And, yeah, people that had a bad kidney, people that have had, different things like that. Had to have one removed.
Miscarriages. Lots of miscarriages out in the Otsego area.
Oh gosh, there's a lot around here, and Allegan, Plainwell.
Failure to thrive. Children that passed away at 1 year old because they failed to thrive, because they were born sickly and had autoimmune disease. Quite a bit. In fact, kids with brain tumors in 6th grade that shouldn't have them. And,
school with one.
That's some of the symptoms that's going around. Early cancers, reproductive cancers, and high school students that graduated in 1999. There's a whole rash of that happened in the late 90s with high school seniors in that time frame.
I've heard about that, and even right now, like in the Kalamazoo, Oshtemo-ish area, and let me see, there's a lot of stillborns that I've heard about, and I'm trying to think what else. Like organs not being in the right places.
Yep. A lot of stuff like that. I could name all the diseases that I've heard. Hashimoto's syndrome and all kinds of weird diseases, autoimmune diseases that are caused by chemical exposure of some sort. If I listed the stupidity that happened out here, you would be scared. You really would be scared to hear these stories. How do I list the spilling of DDT in Plainwell, that this chemical company buried drums of DDT out in rural pits and then it leaked into the aquifer in certain areas. Or they raided the building and found drums of cyanide. And God knows what. They tried to burn radioactive waste in an incinerator in Plainwell. You know, these are some of the stories that actually did happen. They took barrels of brokered waste from industries and they buried them in rural, old gravel pits, only to get discovered and have to spend millions of dollars on cleanup. You know, did they dump the barrels in the lakes out here long ago and they're still there leaking? You know, they did every which way to get rid of hazardous waste. Towns like Wayland had over 1,500 barrels of toxic waste dumped into dumps. Otsego had 1,000 barrels that was buried, and God knows where else. You know, and when you go to ask questions where these barrels are at, you got to pay $1,000 in money to review the documents.
Wow.
You know, and that's sad.
Yeah, putting up so many barriers. Most people don't have the money to have access.
No, you'd have to do a GoFundMe. You'd have to be good at it. Yeah, I'm not a GoFundMe person. You know, I don't have an environmental group page. But that's what it's going to take to get the money to review these documents to find out more information.
And then it's
that's
like
the bill
when
they
you have
sent
it,
me.
what do you do? Yeah.
That's
what
the
do you
quote
do
they
when you
gave me.
have it?
Yeah, $1,100 to review, and that's not the copies. That's just to review the documents.
Oh my gosh. Then what? Yeah, you have to have, take notes.
Well, you could bring in a portable copier yourself and stuff like that. They make software where you can scan documents, but the fact is that they charged me $1,100 to look over A1 Disposal's documents on illegal dumping. It should be free. It should be accessible. It shouldn't be like Fort Knox. It shouldn't be putting up barriers to keep me from looking at stuff.
Wow.
Because I'm pretty sure I could find collusion with other companies that A1 did business with. Because I know they did business with A1 Menasha Paper that caused this PFAS. And there's other companies out there that they did business with, and they don't want me to know who they did business with.
Yeah. Yeah, a whole can of worms.
Well, you have companies that still may be in business today that don't want to be fingered because they'd be on the hook for a lot of cost.
Yeah, but nothing's going to be done unless, somebody pays for it.
I wish you could come to some of these, some of these meetings we've had with officials and stuff like that. They get a little heated in there, behind closed doors.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Nobody really wants people to know what's going on because then they'd have to do something about it.
Well, money has to be spent. It's embarrassment because it's embarrassing to an agency to find out for 40 years you guys didn't do anything. You let this happen. How did this happen? You guys were in charge, and how did this happen? That's what it is. They're trying to protect their legacy. Eagle, or DEQ, Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, sat on their hands for 40 years and allowed these companies to do all this stuff. Well, it's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, and meanwhile, people trusted them to protect us.
They trusted them with their safety, and they were let down.
Yeah. Wow.
So what are you trying to do by exposing them? It's not going to make things really better for health because it's going to, like you said, be there for 50 to 200 years. So what is your main goal by exposing them, Chris?
Well, the main goal is that you don't drink and buy some property and drill a well and have your kids get sick. If you know the property is going to be contaminated in 10 years or it's going to move, then you put a moratorium on drilling for a well. It can't be used for a residential property.
How is
That's
that going
what
to
you
help
do.
the people who already are there, though? Is that going to hurt them worse because now their property will be worthless?
Well, I would rather have them alive than to drink water for 5 years and die of cancer.
So it might become a ghost town soon. Everybody's going to move or not buy the property or get the heck out of there. So do you see this happening?
Then that, at least they're alive, right? At least that they're alive and they're healthy. At least they know. I don't think you should be denied knowledge is what I think. And that's what my group is. It's just an awareness group and an advocate for clean water and clean soil. It's like you need to know the truth of what's going on underground under your property and who caused it if there's an issue. And then get the state to remedy it, either with a deep well or whatever, and have somebody pay for a new well system so you're not going to get contaminated.
Now I have a question. Kelly has oftentimes had the occasional be sick, or actually I should say more than occasional. Do you think it's possible that the environment can have something to do with that?
Was that question for Kelly? I didn't hear it.
Well, actually, the question was for you, but it pertains to Kelly.
So, could you state the question again?
That's fine. Kelly, I was just wondering, if sometimes, Kelly has like unusual sick, like get sick for some strange reason or something. Is it possible, do you think all this environmental stuff could have contributed to some of that?
I don't know if she heard you. Kelly, can you hear?
Oh yeah, yeah. I personally think it's possible for a while. It's kind of concerning that the landfill on KL is partly, is now a focal point, because I lived at Concord Place apartment for a few years, and they're on KL Avenue, and so is the landfill, and I don't know if it's in a different direction from it, and maybe it didn't leak that way, but it's like, wow, that's kind of interesting. Plus, for a while I was, commuting back and forth, visiting a boyfriend that I don't have anymore in Plainwell. And it's like, well, those are kind of ground zero for stuff, and living over by Upjohn, which is Pharmacia now.
Pfizer,
yeah, Pfizer. It's like, wow, that's interesting. That could be not very good.
Well, I could tell you horror stories about working in the chemical industry for back 20 years ago, where you dump barrels just down the drain. I could tell you stories about that, about broken pipes and how contaminated things can get out there. And I could tell you the chemicals that were used. Most people don't realize that your antibiotics are cleaned with a form of gasoline to get the color out of it. And then you cook the gasoline out. They use what's called octane. You've heard of octane in the gasoline, octane.
Yeah.
Well, you wash your drugs with octane, heated octane in it. That's why you take a white pill instead of a yellow pill, because the octane took the yellow out of the pill.
Oh, my God.
It decolorized it.
Wow.
And then you just basically cook the solvents out of your drugs. Rogaine is made with cyanide.
What?
Rogaine for hair?
Yeah.
It's treated with a cyanide chemical, and then it's changed into a different molecule, but it goes through a station of having to have cyanide added to it.
Oh,
Actually,
no, I just recommended that for somebody. Oh, no.
Yeah, and they have it for women, too.
I will explain this. I have a question about something like that. I do know this, that they're very, 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 very careful about Rogaine being around pregnant women.
Oh,
well, that's because it's got hormones in it. It's got
But
it's
they
got
say even handling the pill can cause problems. Now, is that true?
well, yeah, it's made with hormones. It's a form of hormone, estrogen. So yeah, that could mess up your whole reproductive cycle. You know.
I know, but what if you were to hold the pill? I mean, see, they made it sound like even if you were to give it, like, say, if somebody was pregnant, that they would hold the pill.
I don't know I don't know every chemical that goes into Rogaine, but I can tell you that it goes through about 10 stages of 10 processing steps before it gets turned into Rogaine.
wow.
You know, and it goes through some very harsh chemical treatment. Your steroids go through some really harsh chemical treatment. You know, we worked with a lot of dangerous chemicals out by you, Kelly. Some really dangerous chemicals. Chlorine tanks. There's all kinds of things that get mixed with to make pharmaceuticals. I just gave you the example of washing the drugs with that gasoline derivative because I saw it done. I had to do it.
Wow.
I
know
had to
when
put
I
heated
used to...
gasoline derivative onto antibiotics to get the color out. I decolorized this stuff. That was my job.
I know when I lived over by Portage Central when I was growing up, the wind would change when it was still uptown, and it would come from the east, and all that smell was just horrific.
Well, the smell is fermentation. That's the smell of chemical fermentation of making like penicillin. You know, you have to grow it from a little test tube into a big tank. So what you're smelling is the fermentation of the plant.
So that's not too bad.
That's not bad, but you have to process all these drugs with different chemicals to get the result.
And those have
the
to
chemicals
go somewhere.
these chemicals ended up in a landfill out in Oshimo Township.
Over by where I used to live when I got older.
Yeah. The good thing about Concord Apartments, where you lived at, was city water. Now, as you get out into the country, you don't have city water, you have well water. And that's what was getting contaminated.
Ooh, yikes. Yeah.
So, fortunately, if you lived in the city, you had city water that was monitored and tested and all that.
Good. But, I feel bad for those people and all those farms. I mean, those are farms that we'd go to the fruit stands. We'd go to the U-Pick blueberries. You know?
Yep, all up M43 there going towards Van Buren County. That you wouldn't tell that underneath, 90 feet underneath, is all contaminated. You wouldn't know it. Then it goes out for about 6 miles in a direction north to northwest out of there.
Wow, that's sad.
It's sad. We're going to leave the planet someday, and that stuff will still be in the ground. And then the next generation won't know about it because nobody told them about it.
Oh, boy.
Now they put deed restrictions in so you can't drill a well and different things like that. But the story has got to be told to the next generation.
Yeah, they need to, drill deeper than what their existing wells are if they're going to be safe.
Well, they need to tell the next generation what happened so it doesn't get forgotten. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the DEQ wants to erase it from people's memory that it happened because they don't want to talk about it. That's the problem I have. You don't want to talk about what happened because it was so horrific that people are going to forget about it, and then people will get sick 100 years from now.
And they won't know why.
They won't have a clue. They won't have a clue.
And
PFAS
yet,
lasts forever. It doesn't
wow.
break down. You know, and it causes illness and stuff like that.
And there might be ways that they can figure out how to work around it, but they're not going to let them have the knowledge.
If you don't know it's there, you're not going to put a filter on your water. Why would you? If you don't think it's there, and you could be drinking that water for years, and all of a sudden your family's ill, and you don't know why.
Oh, boy.
Because of bad decision making in the 1970s or 80s.
And it's all done when it goes to Lake Michigan.
Yeah, and eventually it'll work its way into Lake Michigan. The streams lead into Lake Michigan. They drain. Kalamazoo River goes into Lake Michigan. St. Joe River goes into Lake Michigan.
And they're just now talking about cleaning up the Kalamazoo River. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, because I sit on the Citizens Advisory Board or Citizens Advisory Group. It's we get input from the public and give it to the EPA on the river. So I sit on that group, and we're cleaning up, but we're leaving other chemicals behind, but we're only cleaning up one because it's the lawsuit says you only have to clean up this chemical. Well, what about the other ones that bleed into the river?
Oh.
That's fine. You took care of PCBs, but what about the other stuff that's leaching into the river? You can't eat the fish out of the river. We treated the Kalamazoo River as a toilet.
Oh, and people are still using it for recreation.
Yeah, you can't eat the fish out of the Kalamazoo River because they have the fish have PCBs in them and other things.
And there again, it's something you can't see. The river looks clean, so people are.
The river looks clean, but you wouldn't want to drink out of it. You wouldn't want to drink out of it.
Or eat the fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, or eat the fish. But the bad part is the Kalamazoo River flows into Lake Michigan.
Oh.
It's a big watershed out of Michigan. It covers hundreds of miles. It drains hundreds of miles of lakes and whatnot in southern Michigan. And it goes into Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan goes into Lake Huron, goes into Lake Erie, goes into Lake Ontario. You know, so we bleed into Lake Michigan what we contaminated from factories, you know, over here in southwest Michigan.
And people swim and eat out of it and drink out of it?
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of towns take their water supplies out of the Kalamazoo River.
Yeah.
Or, you know, use it for whatever. Filtering it isn't going to get it out. I take that back. I don't know of any town that would draw water from the Kalamazoo River. I think they use wells pretty much near the area, but it's an important river system.
Yeah, the water has to come from somewhere.
Well, you're contaminating, you know, one of the United States' biggest resources is fresh water. We have the biggest fresh water supply in the world, the Great Lakes, and you're contaminating it through bad policies.
Yeah, I was disgusted the last time I was at Lake Michigan. I thought, oh wow, look at all these little shells, and I looked down and I investigated, and there were these little tiny pieces of white plastic, like from plastic shopping bags.
Yeah, you know, it all gets carried out to the lake.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just one individual. I work with a partner, and we try to tackle these, and we try to ask questions, you know, and we try to force the issue, and we try to use the state government at the upper levels to get answers for us, and to make policy changes and to clean up stuff that needs to be cleaned up. That's what we do. But we run into a lot of landmines and a lot of roadblocks by townships. I would say inept officials that don't care, transit officials that are leaving office that don't care, and real estate groups and other interests that don't want it found. And that's why Michigan ranks high on the states of, I think they're like number 10 on the list as far as being the most corrupt state, and state government is probably number 10 to number 14 out of 50 states. Michigan's up there with the level of corruption. And
wow.
that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at all that we really have to offer as far as natural resources, and it's like they're crapping on it.
Yep. So, that's one thing that I hope we can improve is let's be a little bit more forthcoming to the citizens of the state, and let's fix the problems where we can find it. And I don't want to hear we don't have the money to do it, because we sat on our hands for 40 years doing nothing.
Yeah, I don't want it to turn into Gary, Indiana.
Yeah. Well, in some cases, we're worse than Gary, Indiana. In some cases, we are.
Yeah, you can't drive through that in some of the places in southern Chicago without it looking like smog.
Well, what I refer to as Flint, look at the problems that Flint and that area have. Their quality of water in Flint is terrible.
Yeah.
Look how that was handled. That was handled terribly. Those lead pipes and those people that got sick from that was handled terribly by Governor Snyder. And six officials from the state of Michigan were brought up on charges of people dying from that stuff.
Yeah, and now they can get some extra help from the state, but it's like too little too late. And that's if they're still alive.
Kelly, how would you like to go to this investigation in Otsego? And the person that led it 2 years ago was in jail for, was in charge. I can't think of her name right now, but she was from the Michigan Department of Health. She was brought up on manslaughter charges for what happened in Flint. She's leading the meeting in Otsego.
You mean she's not, like, in jail or prison?
Well, there's court proceedings against her. I don't know whether they dropped the charges against her, but at one time they were going to charge her with manslaughter for the deaths in Flint, Michigan. And here she's the one that was in charge of leading the meeting in Otsego.
Wow.
She's kind of disappeared from the scene, but that's the kind of people that you get running things.
That's
people
scary.
got charged with deaths out of Flint, and she was one of them.
Oh. Those are the kind of people advocating for people and their safety?
Well, they're the ones that are in charge of agencies that investigate pollution.
Oh, boy. Aren't we in trouble?
Yeah. The lady's name was Mary Eden Wells, and she was like a Michigan Department of Health officer, and she opened up the meeting, 2 to 3 years ago when we started investigating Otsego. And here she gets charged with manslaughter for something that happened with the Flint water thing. But that's the kind of caliber of people that we have. When you talk state corruption, that's what we get.
Wow. So somebody called her out on it, or?
Yeah, there were some deaths, and it had to do with Legionnaire's disease from water that was used in Flint, and she didn't respond quick enough, and people died because she didn't do her job. She ignored evidence and didn't move quick enough, and people ended up dying.
Oh, my God.
She was in charge of Michigan Public Health.
Well, that's definitely something you don't hear of people, contracting. My goodness. I mean, it was that bad. People got Legionnaire's disease.
Well, yeah, that was very terrible that they died, but
It took
the
that for
secondary,
somebody.
she's leading a group that's doing a. So what kind of quality are we going to get out of this person?
Yeah, hopefully a lot better. Hopefully they learned to act on it, but I guess, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So we're pushing, and I'm the governor's call today was really good. That was really good. That at least when the governor's office calls her, that's a pretty good thing in most cases.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're getting involved.
So we still have a toehold on the investigation. We haven't gone away, and that makes me feel like there's hope.
Oh, I hope so. I really do, because your work is very important, and people have a right to know what's going on, to be able to make their own decisions on what they're going to do.
Exactly. You need, don't keep bad help from somebody. Somebody's going to get harmed. Don't sit there and omission to me is a crime. If you know there's contamination in an area, speak out about it. If you're a government official, don't try to hide it and prevent it from being told.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness. I mean, could you imagine, a few years down the road, if, I'm talking 25 years, if, the life expectancy actually starts to plummet because so many people are getting sick and they don't know why.
At one point, this investigation got so sinister and things were getting stirred up. I asked the DEQ guy, I go, is somebody going to run me off the road going home from work? I said, is that what it's going to take to shut me down? I said, are they going to find my car wrapped around a tree? Because this is so, it's so relevant to what's going on, and there's so many people with money interests that are mad about it. I said, is that what's going to happen? In the end, they got to the media and just didn't cover the story. He didn't think I was going to get a bullet or get the car wrapped around a tree, but turns out maybe they control the media a little bit.
Well, I'm glad that it's not going to get, that bad, because, my goodness, I couldn't imagine losing you as a friend and having, all of us lose you as an ally in our health and well-being in the fight.
Well, that's why I work with a partner, because we duplicate our information. So if anything happens to me, the story could. Matter of fact, at 12:30, I have to get up and I have to brief my partner on the call today and stuff like that in a few minutes. But yeah, that's why we duplicate our information and we keep separate records in case something happens to one of us. We could tell the story.
Wow. Well,
So the story
God
never
bless
dies.
You. God
we
bless
go to
you
that
and your
extreme.
family. Yeah.
Yes, we go to that extreme. But we're just looking for help from the state government to tell the story.
Yeah. It's important, and I'm glad that you do that, and I'm glad that your family supports you, or at least puts up with it.
Well, my brother's the one with the dairy farm that got contaminated, so we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad we can help get that word out too.
Oh yeah, your organization's great. I appreciate all of you.
Well, thank you. Do you have anything to ask or add, Barbara or Jonathan?
Yes,
No,
I wanted to know if there are certain kind of tests that people are supposed to take to see if they have been contaminated. do they just go to the doctor and get a normal checkup, or are there special tests if they think they have been contaminated or want to know? What do you tell your doctor? Have you told your doctor?
Well, you got to know what you're contaminated from. That's the issue. You got to know what you're contaminated from, and if the government won't tell you what you're contaminated from, how are you going to ask a test? Because there are tests, like for PFAS, you can get tests for PFAS contamination, but they're very expensive. But you got to know what you're contaminated from to begin with.
Well, do you have a list on your group page on Facebook of things that they possibly could be contaminated with?
There's a wide range of things that you could be contaminated, anything from heavy metals. You know, think of the Aaron Brockovich movie. They got contaminated from chromium out in California, you know, out by Bakersfield, California. PG&E was using that chromium, and they were getting sick from the chromium. And that's the sad part. There are so many industrial chemicals out there. Until you know what you're dealing with from what, it kind of, you know, it would take a specialist to determine what you got exposed to. You know,
well, you say it's expensive too, so most people can't afford these tests.
Oh. I bet insurance wouldn't pay for it either if you don't know.
And the problem we had in Otsego, we got exposed 30 to 40 years ago. And how do you prove that? You know, how do you prove that caused it from like 30 years ago?
Wow.
Well,
you have to look at the history of your manufacturing where you live. You know, what went on in the given area that you live, and kind of go from there.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, we're about out of time, but it was great to have you come on. Now, Barbara, would you like to do the shout out?
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask Chris, could you tell everybody where to find you, and all the listeners out there, if you have any way, shape, or form, ideas, proof, or some way to help Chris, where do they reach you, Chris?
You know what? There's a group in Otsego, and they can reach out to Justice for Otsego, because that's the main group. I'm not part of Justice for Otsego, but they could contact me through there. And they're the ones that push for the health testing and everything like that, where I'm more of just a solo investigator with partner. And so Justice for Otsego would be the best group to reach out to.
Okay.
Because they have a GoFundMe page and all that stuff out there.
Because this is a very, very bad problem. And thank you so much for the work you do. And I'm glad there's been some major breakthroughs recently. And we just hope you have the strength to continue doing what you do.
I took an oath to defend the country in 1988. And that oath is unbinding. You know, now I just do it with a computer instead of a rifle. I do it with a computer, and health and safety involve, you know, research
very important
and
what you
investigating.
Do.
Yeah. So that oath is
we wish
unbinding.
all the people well.
Yep.
Yeah.
We wish them well, and thank you so much for coming on. And everybody, if you would like to listen to this show again and all of our other shows, you can find them on YouTube, Life, Laughter, Happiness YouTube channel, and we hope that you do. And also don't forget to subscribe and reach out to us with your questions and comments on our group page and our Life, Laughter, Happiness Facebook page. And join us on Twitter, Instagram, and thank you so much for always listening Thank you, Chris, and thank you so much, Kelly,
Thank you.
for bringing Chris on and raising awareness to this very, very important issue.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Have a
Good night,
great night.
Good night, Kelly. Good night, Barbara.
Good
Good
night.
night, Chris.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.